Rolls-Royce produces some of the most luxurious cars in the world. But what's truly remarkable is how it all began. Not with wealth, not with privilege, but just started with a poor boy who's selling newspapers on the street just for a survive and getting money to eat. Without education, become one of the most skilled engineer who builds a millions-dollar company despite lack of the education. But his life dramatically changed when he purchased his first vehicle. After that happened, he decided to build his own vehicle with himself. In this matter, his newly built cars were being among the most reliable and powerful in the world. His company were being among the most popular and desired car brand in the industries in the whole of the world. This is the remarkable story and transformation of the poor boy from newspaper seller on the street to a billionaire and powerful. His name is Henry Royce. Henry Royce was born in the small English village in England called Alwalton on the 27th of March, 1863. He was the youngest of 5 children, raised in a family that constantly struggled to make ends meet. Henry grew up in extreme poverty. After his family business collapsed, his life became a daily struggle. His father was a struggling flour miller, and when Henry was just 4 years old, the family business went completely bankrupt. This forced his family to move to London. Things quickly went from bad to worse. When Henry was just 9, his father died, leaving the family destitute. To keep himself and his family from starving, young Henry was forced onto the streets. He sold newspapers at the crack of dawn and delivered telegrams late into the freezing nights. But Henry possessed a mind that was entirely unique. He had only completed 1 single year of formal schooling. By his teenage years, his aunt managed to scrape together enough coins to buy him an apprenticeship at a railway company. Henry became obsessed with mechanics and electricity. He worked by day and by night. He taught himself engineering from borrowed textbooks. By 1884, using a meager £20 he had saved, Henry and a friend started a small electrical business. They slept in hammocks above their workshop, surviving on half-eaten sandwiches. But Henry's obsession with quality paid off. He began inventing better electric doorbells, dynamos, and heavy electric cranes. By the late 1890, F.H. Royce & Company was a massive success, employing over 100 men. But Henry's habit of overworking himself caused his health to collapse. His doctors ordered him to buy a motor car and take drives in the fresh country air to rest his lungs. Henry bought a used 1901 French de Courville, but the car was a total disaster. The electrical system failed constantly. It was deafeningly loud, it leaked oil, and it vibrated so violently it rattled his teeth. Henry Royce was a perfectionist. Instead of hiring a mechanic, he brought the car to his workshop, stripped it down to the last bolt, and decided he would simply build a better car to himself. While Henry Royce was fighting to survive on the streets, Charles Rolls was living a life of absolute privilege. Born into British nobility in 1877, Charles was an aristocrat who went to Cambridge University and had a massive family fortune at his disposal. But Charles was a thrill seeker. He was obsessed with the dangerous new world of motor racing. He opened a luxury car dealership in London, selling expensive French vehicles to Britain's elites. But Charles had a problem. He was deeply patriotic, and he was frustrated that there were no British cars good enough to sell to his wealthy friends. Charles, leveraging his vast wealth and high society connections, Charles opened a luxury car dealership in London, selling expensive French vehicles to Britain's elite. But Charles had a problem. He was deeply patriotic, and he was deeply frustrated that there were no British cars good enough to sell to his wealthy friends. He wanted to put Britain on the automotive map. Everything changed in the spring of 1904. A mutual friend named Henry Edmonds told Charles about a brilliant, obsessive engineer in Manchester who had just built a flawless 2-cylinder car. Charles was highly skeptical of 2-cylinder engines, but Edmonds urged him to take the train north just to see it. On the 4th of May 1904, the wealthy aristocrat and the former newspaper boy met at the Midland Hotel in Manchester. It was a meeting of complete opposites. But when Charles Rolls sat behind the wheel of Henry Royce's creation, he was entirely speechless. It didn't vibrate, it didn't stutter, it started on the first pull. It was an absolute engineering masterpiece. Charles returned to London and famously told his business partner, "I have found the greatest motor engineer in the world." They agreed that from that moment on, every car Henry built would be sold exclusively by Charles. The legendary name was born, Rolls-Royce. While Rolls and Royce were the names on the building, the company's survival depended entirely on a third man, Claude Johnson. Often called the hyphen in Rolls-Royce, Johnson was a marketing genius. He knew that to sell these incredibly expensive machines, they needed to prove to the world that they were indestructible. In 1907, Rolls-Royce released a vehicle that would change history forever. The 40 over 50 horsepower model, famously painted in shimmering silver and adorned with genuine silver-plated fittings. They called it the Silver Ghost. The 7-litre engine was so unbelievably smooth that Claude Johnson placed a brimful glass of water on the engine block while it was running. Not a single drop spilled. To prove its durability, Johnson entered the Silver Ghost in a grueling 15,000-mile Scottish reliability trial. They drove the car day and night over some of the worst, most punishing roads in Britain. It never broke down once. The global press was stunned, officially dubbing Rolls-Royce the best car in the world. Orders poured in from Indian Maharajas, Russian Tsars, and American tycoons. It was during this time that the iconic hood ornament was born. Sculptor Charles Sykes designed the Spirit of Ecstasy, modeled after a British actress. It became the ultimate symbol of automotive royalty. But just as the company reached global fame, tragedy struck. Charles Rolls was a pioneer of early aviation, becoming the first man to ever fly non-stop across the English Channel and back. But in 1910, during a flight exhibition in Bournemouth, the tail of his Wright Flyer snapped off mid-air. The plane plummeted to the earth. At just 33 years old, Charles Rolls became the first Briton killed in an aeronautical accident. The sudden death of his partner shattered Henry Royce. To make matters worse, Henry's lifelong habit of skipping meals and working 2 zero-hour days had destroyed his body. He was diagnosed with severe bowel cancer. The doctors gave him 3 months to live, but Henry absolutely refused to die. He moved to a house by the sea, hired a team of draftsmen, and continued designing engines from his deathbed. And it was a good thing he did. When World War I and later World War II broke out, the British military desperately needed engines for their fighter planes. The British government turned to the only company obsessive enough to build them perfectly. Rolls-Royce shifted its relentless pursuit of perfection from luxury cars to the skies. Henry Royce and his team designed the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine. It was an absolute monster. A 2.7-litre V12 supercharged engine that was placed inside the iconic Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane. During the Battle of Britain in 1940, the Royal Air Force, powered entirely by Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, fought off the relentless attacks of the German Luftwaffe. The engine was so fast and so reliable that military historians widely agree Rolls-Royce engineering was one of the primary reasons the Allies won the air war against Nazi Germany. Sadly, Henry Royce passed away in 1933, never living to see his engines save the free world. It is a famous myth that the Rolls-Royce logo was changed from red to black in mourning of his death. In reality, Henry himself decided to change it to black simply because it looked more elegant against any paint color. After the war, Rolls-Royce returned to what it did best: building the ultimate luxury vehicles for the ultra-wealthy. They became the official car of the British royal family when Princess Elizabeth ordered a Phantom 4. Models like the Silver Cloud and the Silver Shadow sold in record numbers, becoming the ultimate status symbol for celebrities like John Lennon and Muhammad Ali. But behind closed doors, a massive corporate disaster was brewing. Rolls-Royce's aerospace division was fiercely competitive, and in the late 1960s, they signed a massive contract to build a revolutionary jet engine for Lockheed called the RB211. To make the engine lighter, Rolls-Royce engineers used experimental carbon fiber fan blades. But during testing, a simulated bird strike shattered the blades into 1,000,000 pieces. They had to redesign the entire engine using heavy titanium. The delays and development costs spiraled completely out of control. By 1971, Rolls-Royce was bleeding cash and drowning in over £200 million of debt. In a shocking announcement that shook the global economy, the creators of the best car in the world declared bankruptcy. The company was too important to the British military and economy to be allowed to die. The UK government stepped in with a massive taxpayer bailout, nationalized the company. They officially split Rolls-Royce into two entirely separate businesses, Rolls-Royce plc for aerospace and Rolls-Royce Motors for cars. The golden era was over. By the late 1990, the Rolls-Royce car division was struggling, and it was put up for sale by its parent company Vickers. What followed was one of the most bizarre and bitter corporate bidding wars in automotive history between two German titans, BMW and Volkswagen. Volkswagen came out swinging, outbidding BMW with a massive £430 million offer. Volkswagen won the historic Crew Factory, the iconic Parthenon-shaped grille design, and the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament. Volkswagen celebrated their victory, but they missed one tiny, critical detail. Vickers didn't actually own the rights to the Rolls-Royce name or the RR logo. Those were still owned by the Rolls-Royce Aerospace division. And the Aerospace division had close business ties with BMW. For a mere £40 million, BMW secretly bought the rights to the Rolls-Royce name and logo right out from under Volkswagen's nose. It was a corporate stalemate. Volkswagen had the factory and the hood ornament, but couldn't call their cars Rolls-Royce. BMW had the name, but couldn't use the famous grille or the hood ornament. Finally, they reached a deal. Volkswagen would keep the Bentley brand and the old factory. BMW would take complete control of Rolls-Royce in 2003. They had to start completely from scratch.